So the next speaker now is Leonie Fennell. I hope I'm not hopping on her too soon now. But like the previous two speakers as well, who have lost family members, Leonie has had the tragedy of losing her son. Again, Leonie, since that event happened as well, has come very much to prominence for the campaign she has undertaken. I heard her speaking about it a few weeks ago in Wicklow for the first time, and we're delighted to have her here in Cork as well for her to tell you more about it. This is Leonie.
Thank you very much. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much to Mary and Mindfreedom Ireland for asking me here to speak. I'm not used to doing this, and I said I wasn't going to cry until Gordon started, so that was the end of that. I'm not an expert by any means. I just want to tell my story and the death of my son Shane and our experience afterwards. That's his fault. Shane was going into his final year in college. He was doing Irish, he loved the Irish language. He never suffered from any mental illness. He broke up with his girlfriend and he got very down. So he was supposed to be going on a charity thing with Suez. He was going to India, to Calcutta. And I said, you know, he told Suez anyway what happened with his girlfriend, and they said, well, defer it till next year when you're feeling 100%. So I said, why don't you go on a round the world trip? And, you know, because you've nothing else to do for the summer. He was still very heartbroken over the girlfriend, couldn't get over it. We couldn't understand it actually, because we'd never seen Shane sad even. I'd never even seen him cry until he broke up with the girlfriend. It just seemed to hit us out of the blue. And he went around the world anyway. I think he was back in 8 days. We were slagging him, saying in 8 days. You know, he didn't seem to, he had the same sense of humour as us. He would think that was hilarious. He was still able to be Shane, but anyway, he was still very sad about the breakup, and I said, well, maybe it's more than that. I actually bought into I don't know if the chemical imbalance is the right word, but I thought if you go to the doctor, they're going to fix you. Maybe it's more than just a broken heart, because we've never seen him like this. And he went to the doctor, and the first doctor said exercise and, you know, eat properly and stuff, and come back in a while, which I think was a great thing to do. She was right. And he didn't feel any better, so I rang up again, and he went in, and he was prescribed a month's supply of citalopram. He took the citalopram for 5 days. He started getting very restless up and down. He would come down to us, and he just couldn't sit still. He was up in the bed, he'd come down, he wanted to go home, he wanted to go to his friend's house, he wanted to go here, he went to see a priest, he went to see everybody, you name it, he would tell about his broken heart. The man in the shop, he would tell about his broken heart. So after 5 days, he took the rest of the 28 tablets altogether in an overdose, which I assume was a suicide attempt. He came down to us shortly afterwards, and I said, Shane, what are you doing? Did you need to do that? And he said, I don't know. I'm sorry. I just had no idea. The last time I had a meltdown was last week with TV3. I've been fine for 4 years. TV3 said to me, yeah, but you did everything you could for your son. No, I didn't. If I didn't, it's going to be him. I took him to the doctor to get fixed. They gave him fucking tablets. Anyway, I'm doing what I'm doing now because I didn't do it when he was alive. Shortly after Shane, I will tell you what happened to Shane first. After 5 days he took the tablets altogether. After 17 days, the police came down to our door and said that Shane had killed a man. And he had died. He had stabbed himself 19 times. My son, who was the biggest coward, who would never even scratch him, he was such a coward, he was unbelievable. But anyway, I couldn't believe it. I thought that the guards had made a mistake. There's no way, my son had never hit somebody in his whole life. So in the papers after a few days, my sister sent me something that this guy, Dr. Curry, who was an amazing man, he said in the papers, Shane Clancy would not have done this if he wasn't on antidepressants. And I said to Tommy, this guy's a looper, what's he talking about? He's prescribed these drugs by a doctor, you know, how could he say that? And anyway, we started researching and we could not believe what we were reading, and we made an appointment to see Dr. Curry, and he was just such an amazing man. And I just could not believe that I had sent the Shane to the doctor to get bloody tablets. Anyway, Dr. Curry said, this is Yvonne Woody. The drug companies actually have to admit that their drugs can cause suicide in a court of law. But as Professor Healy said, Irish academia or any other academia don't have to do the same. So the question is often referred to them, do antidepressants cause suicide? And they will say no. There's a drug company, Lumbeck, this is Yvonne Woodley, who hung herself after her dose was repeatedly upped in the UK of citalopram, the same drug that Shane was on. I took a picture from a patient information leaflet in America which says, gives homicide ideation as an adverse effect of an antidepressant. But they will never admit that in Ireland for some reason. This is Donald Shell, who GSK had to pay 6 million out to because his father-in-law here, they had to pay 6 million to this guy here because his father-in-law, after 2 days on Seroxat, which is known as Paxil in America, shot his wife, his daughter, his granddaughter, when she was 6 months old, and himself after 2 days of Paxil. This is another case to do with citalopram. There's lots of cases. This is just one I picked out because it's just so sad. This man, Robert Raines, I think he was 78, wasn't he? Yeah. 78 when he shot himself and his wife after 5 days on citalopram, the same drug as Shane. The FDA warning came out in 2004 for under 18s for suicide because of the risk of suicide. The warning, in 2007, the warning was upped to under 24s. Yet Irish psychiatry will still deny this. This is the EU suicide warning. The EMA came out with it, I think it was 2005, and then the age was up to 25 in 2008. If I had known that there was it doubles the risk of suicide when you first go on these drugs and violence. 1 in 100 people will go on to die by suicide. Sorry, commit is not the right word. So die by suicide because of these drugs, and 1 in 100 will go on to an act of violence. This is just because of the drug, not any chemical imbalance which doesn't exist. This is from, where should I take this from? This is from the patient information leaflet in America as well, where it says about agitation, suicide, ideation, violence. But as you can see, it has nothing to do with under 25s. It can occur in any age group. Sorry, I just had a complete freaking meltdown again, didn't I? This is what Professor Healy said about Shane. Actually, what I should have said was there's 2 experts well known in the world, which is Peter Bregan and David Healy. I tormented both of them. I contacted both of them, and as David Healy was an Irish guy, I tormented him. I gave that man an awful time. I don't know how many emails I sent him, begged him. I would have done anything to get him to do Shane's inquest. And he finally said that he would think about it, because I'd given him all the details, and he said he was sure that the drug had caused it. But what he said was, the conduct of organised psychiatry in Ireland in response to Shane's case closely resembles the Catholic Church handling of abuse cases. Why would he say that? Because this is Professor Patrice Casey of the Irish College of Psychiatry at Shane's inquest with her legal team. This woman was uninvited by me anyway. This was my son's inquest. And because I had made an issue of antidepressants in the media, she appears at Shane's inquest with her legal team because she knew David Healy was going to testify. Patricia Casey and the Irish College of Psychiatry got involved in Shane's inquest before his inquest, during his inquest, and after his inquest, trying to make me out to be a lunatic. That, what are you talking about? These drugs do not cause suicide. Ted Denan from UCC said in the papers, I will stick, what did she say? He said, I can say with 100% certainty, without any fear of contradiction, that these drugs do not cause homicide. And there is no evidence that these drugs can cause suicide. That's despite all the evidence there from the European Medicines Agency and the FDA. Both Professors Casey and Denan have previously declared links to Lundbeck, the makers of the drug, surprisingly enough. The objectivity of our key opinion leaders surely is of utmost importance here. That's self-explanatory as far as I'm concerned. Patricia Casey has said, I have her on video on my blog actually, Leonie Fennell's blog if anybody's interested. Evidence about suicide is that antidepressants do not cause suicide. Is my son not evidence enough? She also quoted that. This, incidentally, is another person's inquest who took Lexapro, made by Lundbeck again, who Patricia Casey has links to. Why would somebody go to a person's inquest to deny that the drugs can cause suicide? He was 5 days on Lexapro. It doesn't make any sense. Well, it does make sense to me, but maybe not to you. Timothy Denan, is it? He was the one that said in the paper he could say with 100% certainty that antidepressants did not cause murder. Or there's no evidence that antidepressants can cause suicide. He also has links to Pfizer, who makes Zoloft. Here he is at another man's inquest. The family said he was driven mad by this guy, Nicholas Maguire, who's actually from Cork. His family said that they saw a dramatic change in his personality while he was taking sertraline, also known as Zoloft. I think it's called Lustral here. He said he was driven mad by the tablets and he was having terrible dreams. Timothy Denan said he was not aware of any convincing evidence that taking sertraline usually leads to suicide ideation. The use of the sertraline helps to reduce suicidality and reduce depression. The public should not have any concerns about these drugs. This was the same guy who wrote the same thing in the paper about Shane the year previously, so he said he hadn't heard about any concerns. This is the second of a solicitor's letter which I got from Patricia Casey, because she said I defamed her on a blog, and then I changed it for what they wanted me to change it to, because I couldn't allow another person to have to stand up in court for me, so I did change the wording. So I said I will never be bullied or intimidated by Lundbeck or Patricia Casey. So this is the second solicitor's letter I got, and as you can see, she didn't silence me. What have we done in the last 4 years? Well, I wasn't just going to sit down and take it, especially not from Irish psychiatry. So this is David Healy here in the middle, Declan Gilson and Tony with his shocked look in his face. What we were talking about. Oh, it was probably because the security guy, this is inside Leinster House, the security guy came over and nearly hopped on me for taking a picture, but I got it first anyway, you couldn't take it off me. We went to see Kathleen Lynch. David Healy told her that these drugs are the leading cause of death within the mental health field. Declan Gilson is the assistant state pathologist in Ireland. He did Shane's autopsy, and we just randomly met him one time out in the blue, and we started talking to him, and that's how we got him into Leinster House. He said he has serious concerns that people who had just started taking these drugs have gone on to kill themselves, that he had done 6 inquests in the last autopsy he did were 6 inquests, and 5 were suicides, and 4 of the 5 suicides had been recently introduced to SSRIs. What did Patty Lynch do? Nothing. She cares. We went as far as the Irish Human Rights Commission, where they set out some recommendations after a long and protracted investigation into Shane and what happened and the drugs and what the EMA say and the FDA. And they said, among other things, that there should be a level of monitoring and ongoing supervision when SSRIs are initially prescribed. An oral explanation of the risks and side effects be given to the patient in advance. Despite all these warnings, Irish psychiatrists still publicly deny that these drugs can cause suicide. Why? The Irish Commission of Human Rights, it's your human rights, they have made these recommendations. The last time there was an investigation, the girl, Drogan was her name, I can't remember her first name, she went around to the doctors and said she had mild depression. One of the doctors gave her 8 months supply. So, that's a nice one there. How many Shanes will there be before our Irish government will do something? Informed consent, that's all I want. I don't want people to go off their drugs. I don't want people not to go off their drugs. It's your choice. But be warned, this can happen. This happened to my son. Is he not evidence enough? That's it.